Dimitra, which means hello and welcome in Greek to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a Spanakopita galette. Now galette is basically just a fancy word for a free-form tart or pie. Spanakopita is so popular in Greek cooking. There are so many different versions of it. I've taught so many on this channel, and yet here is another one. I feel like we just cannot get away from this delicious filling that's made with fresh spinach and feta, and I like to put ricotta in mine just like my mom does. And so many fresh herbs and flavors in this dish. I love to serve this at parties because it is so easy to make, as you will see. And I make my filling completely different from anyone else. My mom taught me to never cook the spinach because that's how you retain a lot of its freshness. I like to use a tabletop mixer for this because it just makes the mixing part so easy, and it did take me a long time to figure that out, but if you don't have a tabletop mixer, you can just take out a big mixing bowl and just mix it with your clean hands. So we're gonna begin by making that delicious filling. So in my mixing bowl, I'm gonna add feta cheese. This is a pound of feta. I like to buy the block feta, not the already crumbled. It makes a huge difference in quality. So sheep's milk feta is best, but if you can't find it, or if you want to get something a little bit less expensive, cow's milk feta will do in recipes that you're baking. I'm also going to add 15 ounces of full-fat ricotta cheese. And before I start the mixer, I'm just going to lightly beat 3 eggs in this little ricotta cheese container. Just mix it up very lightly with a fork and put it in the mixer. To that, I'm going to add 3 teaspoons of dried dill. If you have fresh dill, go ahead and add about 1/4 cup of finely chopped fresh dill. I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt and some freshly cracked black pepper. I'll do 1/2 teaspoon. Add however much you want. And then I'm just going to turn the mixer on and let this beat until the feta is crumbled and everything is incorporated. In just a few seconds, that's done. Now what I'm going to do, let me add the olive oil. I almost forgot that. We need about 1/3 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And while the mixer is going, I'm going to add a little bit of spinach at a time. I have 1 pound of baby spinach that has been roughly chopped. And I'm just going to mix this all together until all of the spinach is incorporated and everything is mixed up all together. And the final ingredient, which I almost forgot, are some scallions. So the scallions could go in along with the spinach. Now I have frozen scallions here that I finely chopped. I've done a video on how to preserve your herbs, and I'll link that up in the card section up above. I didn't have any fresh scallions, but you could definitely use these instead. If you don't have scallions, you could just finely chop a small onion, saute it in a little bit of olive oil until it's nice and soft and golden, and just add that in. I usually don't measure, but I feel like a cup is what I need over here. 5 to 6 scallions is what the recipe calls for, but this will do. I'm going to continue adding the spinach in here, and then we're going to move on to the next step. And then you just want to go in with a big spatula and just mix everything one more time, just in case there's stuff stuck at the bottom. Okay, now we're just going to assemble the whole thing, which is so easy. You're going to need 1/2 pack of phyllo. This is the regular number 4 phyllo, which are the thin sheets. If you're using country phyllo, which I highly recommend, if you can find it, I didn't have it on hand and I couldn't find it in the stores, but if you can find it, it's thicker cut phyllo. It's usually the number 10. I'll post it in the blog post just to be completely sure. But anything that says country phyllo is going to be perfect because the leaves, the phyllo sheets are going to be thicker, and they're just going to bake up to be hardier and crisper, like more crisp actually. So if you're going to use the country phyllo, use the whole pack. So this should be 1/2 pack, and it's looking kind of crumbly, so I'm kind of happy I'm using this just so that way you can see what it looks like when you get difficult to work with phyllo. It's always good to have that experience also. So I'm going to take one sheet and put it at about the 12 o'clock position. If you pretend like you have a clock in front of you, the first sheet goes vertically in front of you in the pan. A part of it is going to be hanging outside of the pan, and it'll be at the 12 o'clock/6 o'clock position. Then I have some salted butter that I have melted. This is 1 stick or 4 ounces. The gram measurements are going to be on the blog post. And then I'm going to take another sheet and I'm going to put it at around the 3 o'clock position, just like that. Drizzle some melted butter. Then I'm going to take another one and put it again at the 3 o'clock/9 o'clock position, but I'm going to cover both sides like that. Another one, I'm going to put it down here so it could be more at like the 6 o'clock position, so I have every single area covered. Then I'm going to take one and put it right here. And if it starts to break on you, that's okay. Put the thinner part on the inside. And then you're going to go at the part that's kind of open, which would be like the 1 or 2 o'clock position. And you're just going to keep doing this and keep drizzling butter all around. You don't have to brush the butter on. And make sure you cover both areas. So this would be like 7 o'clock here. You get where I'm going with this. And that's it. You're going to end up using about 10 sheets of phyllo. Any leftover phyllo can be wrapped up with plastic wrap and stored in the refrigerator, or you can just shred it all up and make a portocalopita, which is an orange pie. That's delicious. I'm going to post that link up here as well. Now I'm going to take all of the filling and put it in the center. I'm not going to spread it. Just pile it on right here in the center. You can take some of this out if you don't want your spinach pie galette to be too thick. You can take some of this out and then just use the leftover phyllo and make little spinach pie rolls or triangles. Then I'm going to take some of the butter that's left over and I'm just going to brush the edges with it. And now I'm going to take the edges of phyllo and I'm going to bring them in to create a little border. And you can fold as you go. Now, if you have trouble and if the phyllo starts to crumble on you, you could fix it with butter, but you can also wet your hands. I'm gonna get a little bowl with water and kind of use wet hands to help you do this. It'll help the phyllo stay together, but butter does a great job too. It works like glue. And then you're gonna take all the remaining butter and you're just gonna brush it all around. It doesn't look like the most beautiful thing ever right now, but it's going to bake up and it's going to be pretty spectacular. If you want to, if you have some sesame seeds, black or white will do, you can sprinkle some on top. I'm going to leave it just as is. My oven is preheated to 415 degrees Fahrenheit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let it bake on the center rack of the oven for 40 minutes. And then for the last 10-12 minutes, I'm going to take this tray and I'm going to put it on the bottom rack because my heating element is on the bottom of the oven, and I'm going to let it bake for about, like I said, 10 to 15 minutes so that way the bottom will not be soggy. And then once it's all golden all around and the filling is set, I'm going to take it out and let it sit at room temperature for about 15 to 20 minutes, and I will show you what it looks like. So the galette baked for exactly 55 minutes. I know I said 50 minutes, but I did let it go for another 5 minutes because I did want the bottom to get nice and crispy. And as you can see, the bottom is beautifully golden brown. Every oven is different, so keep an eye on it. You do not want to burn it, and you also don't want to undercook it. If you undercook it, that bottom layer is going to be extra soggy. Of course, this is not going to be totally crispy because the filling is so juicy and it is going to wet the bottom of the bottom layer, and it's just going to get a little bit soft anyway. But if you follow the instructions, it's going to be perfect. It is time to cut into this. Oh, once it comes out of the oven, you definitely want to let it rest for about 15-20 minutes at least so it can set, and that way when you go ahead to cut it, it'll slice beautiful slices. This tastes best at room temperature, so you don't have to worry about warming it and serving it piping hot. Time to cut into it. Do you hear that crispy sound? That is exactly what you want to hear. Now it is time to take a bite, and I just cannot wait. The spinach is so fresh tasting. All of those herbs make it shine. The cheese makes it super creamy. That phyllo is buttery and light and flaky and perfectly crisp. I think you guys are going to love this one. Let me just tell you, you guys can just take all these Spanakopita recipes and open up a spinach pie shop. Thank me later. These are delicious. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. If you want to learn how to make more savory Greek pies, you're going to want to click on this playlist right here, and I will see you right over there. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, us.